I come to you all this evening with a different kind of video. This will not be about UFOs, aliens, or anything else like that. This video is all about me. Who am I? What is my background? So, if you're expecting to see video clips in this one, you won't want to watch this. This is all about who I am and why. So, by all means, if you're curious to learn more about me, then stick around, because this one's going to be a long one. I was born on August 6, 1979, in the small town of East Liverpool, Ohio. A town once known for being the pottery capital of the world. A now old, run-down city that once had the nickname Little Chicago. It's sad what the town is better known for now. The town that had a police video go viral of two parents who had overdosed on drugs, slumped over in their vehicle while their child sat in the back seat, unattended. Or how we once made it into a clip on HBO when over 20 people had overdosed in less than 24 hours. Despite the city's continuous decline and the lack of entertainment available here, it's still home. And despite having come and gone from it, something always ends up pulling me back to it. I am sure many of you are familiar with the famous train derailment that happened in February of 2023 in East Palestine, Ohio. Well, East Liverpool is roughly 15 miles south of there. I grew up with a twin sister and an older brother. Despite sharing only the same dad, I did, and always will consider my brother to be my full brother. It wasn't until I had reached my mid-20s when my father revealed to me that I had an even older brother. Again, same dad, different mother. I guess my dad was a ladies' man. Though I am a Christian, I wasn't brought up in a home that would reflect such a faith. Growing up, I was always taught that God was real, and that so was the devil. We didn't go to church or anything like that, but my family did believe in God. Like many others may tell you, I didn't really have the best childhood. My dad was a major alcoholic and had a very short fuse. There were several times that he got physical with me, and to my mother. I'll never forget the pure fear that that man would put into me when he would drink, which was every day. I used to wear these button-up shirts, and sometimes when my dad would get angry, he would grab me hard by my shirt, causing all of the buttons to pop off. He would even vent his temper on my school books. There were many times that he had completely destroyed my books in his many fits of rage. At the age of 9, I had an older cousin who had moved in with us. He was a very shady person, but I was glad that he had moved in because the house that we lived in was haunted. There were things that I had experienced while living there that ultimately would cause me to be too afraid to sleep in my own bedroom until I was 16 years old. The house was that bad. I would dread coming home from school. It was that scary. It actually got to the point where my entire family would all sleep together in the same room, because it felt safer to do so. But that cousin of mine, he had started to teach me things that a boy my age should not have even been aware of. To give it to you bluntly, he taught me how to please myself, and at one point he tried to get me and my brother to engage in sexual relations with each other. Thank God that we did not, and all of this seemed normal to us. I remember that he would always threaten me and say that if I would not do what he asked of, that he would tell my parents about what he had taught me. He held that over me, and the mere thought of my parents knowing that, it gave me really bad anxiety. Eventually I could not take it anymore, and when he threatened to tell on me, I snapped and started to bawl my eyes out. I threw my arms into the air and told him that I couldn't take it anymore, and started walking to my parents to tell them. I couldn't take the anxiety anymore. It was then, when his demeanor suddenly changed. He was the one who was now afraid. He stopped me and promised that he would never threaten me anymore, and that we could start over on a whole new sheet of paper. To think that I thought that I was in the wrong, when I was the victim the whole time. Throughout school, I remember being bullied really bad. When people would pick on me, I would tense up and never defend myself. It wasn't so much that I was afraid of the bully. I was afraid of the other kids becoming aware of what the bully was doing to me. I never enjoyed being in the spotlight. I was never really good at sports until I hit the age of 13. My mother had gone to see a psychic one day, and when she came back, she told me that the psychic had told her to let me play a certain sport, that I would excel in it. My family kind of laughed as I was never known for sports. Well, fast forward 1 year, and I was introduced to the sport of hockey. I remember my brother and I deciding what positions we would play. He chose to be a forward, and I chose to be a goalie. There I was, a kid not known for sports, not physical confrontations, yet I joined one of the most violent and dedicated sports on planet Earth. Now, I do not necessarily believe in psychics. I believe that their wisdom actually comes from demons, and the info that the demon gave that psychic was very accurate. I not only caught on to the sport very fast, but I absolutely excelled in it, winning multiple championships, as well as the most valuable player in back-to-back years. My skills as a goalie were noticed in Buffalo, and I was offered a tryout in 1999. It had become my dream to play in the NHL, and now I had my chance to see what I was truly made of. That is until fate struck, that good old word, with a capital F. I started having some major health issues. I remember seeing so many doctors. I literally could not stop going to the bathroom, and when I did, I would fill the toilet water with blood. To say I was scared, well, that would be a huge understatement. I ended up being diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and a major flare-up just so happened to strike right before my tryout. Ultimately, I did not pass medicals, and my dream had come to an end. I was absolutely devastated. But I had absolutely fallen in love with the sport of hockey, and I continued to play, up to about the age of 30. The sport did so much good for my life. It not only made me into a man, it brought forth an inner confidence. Of all the footage I once had of playing, I lost it all throughout my many moves from state to state. I did, however, manage to find an old video of me playing. The footage is extremely bad. This was a very long time ago. Camera phones were not so common back then. Let me turn back the hands of time. Have a look. To say that the sport of hockey had a huge influence on my life, that would truly be an understatement. It's amazing, looking back on this video, so many years ago. When you hear that saying, the older you get, the faster time seems to move along. It's highly accurate. Like I said, the quality of the footage is extremely poor, but this is literally all that I could track down. To think that I once would do everything so that I would go unnoticed, to this, playing in front of really large crowds, and having a supreme confidence while doing so. The clips you are seeing now, these were just random, pay-to-play leagues. I really wish that I had some of my significant highlights, winning titles, championships, and even being named the most valuable player 2 years in a row. As these clips continue to play out, I'll move along. I believe it was the year 1995, and the internet was just then being discovered. I was always a very shy kid throughout school, and now, being a sophomore in high school, I was introduced to computers and the internet. I remember absolutely falling in love with it all. I was so amazed by the fact that I could literally type to someone, even though they were all the way over in New Zealand, and instantly, right at my fingertips, I quickly discovered that I was able to talk to girls on a keyboard, and it was great. Absolutely no anxiety. And if whoever it was that I was talking on the computer with, if they were to make me blush, it would go unnoticed. I could finally, for the first time in my life, be myself around females and feel comfortable. Chatting with people online back then, it was very foreign, and so many people had so many trust issues with it. It was this vast, never-ending world, and you could find anything. Just pick a topic, type it into the search browser, which was web crawler at the time, and boom, there it was. And anything. But, as I said earlier, I was able to talk to girls comfortably and actually be myself. You see, before I got my first computer, I would go to my local library and use theirs. It was extremely common back then that when you would log into a chat room, you would type ASL, which stood for age, sex, location. Can you imagine what you would type in today's world when people have the illusion of basically identifying as whoever and whatever you like? Back then, there were only 2 genders. And if you said otherwise, you would probably be admitted to a psych ward. God, how bad I miss the good old days. But, like I said, we would throw out the phrase, age, sex, and location. Our goal, or at least the goal of the group of kids I hung around with, it was to get girls' contact information and do what I like to call snail mail. Actually sitting down and writing out a letter and then mailing it to the person. And that is exactly what I did when I met some Canadian girl in an old chat room called Patty Net. Little did I know that this newfound passion, computers, the significance that they would later play in my life. And during this time, I was 16 years old. You will notice that I jump around in time in this video now and then. This girl, she would end up being the first girl that I had ever been with, and my first real relationship. You see, I always hung out with older friends, and I remember my friend Bob. He was driving me, and another buddy of mine, Danny. We were driving home from one of my hockey games. It was in the dead of winter, and I had been talking to this Canadian girl, whose name was Jenny, for several months by this time. I had actually asked this girl out, over the internet, in an online chat room. This was very unique back then, so unique in fact that they made a movie that Tom Hanks starred in, called You've Got Mail. Well, on the way home, I just blurted out the question. I asked my friend Bob if he would be willing to take a road trip to Canada on my 18th birthday that summer. I told him that I would save the money for the trip, and that my girlfriend had 2 other friends, and they wanted to get to know both Bob and Danny. I absolutely loved these 2 guys. You know that he said yes, always upbeat, always spontaneous. I loved it. So it was agreed on, and the road trip was planned. I worked my ass off to save for that trip. But there was one thing bothering me. You see, photos were a hard thing to come across back then. You would either have to snail mail photos, or you could upload a photo from a picture scanner. Jen had sent me a photo of her, but it was really old, and I could barely see her in it. By the time that spring had arrived, I had purchased my girlfriend a present, but I also sent her a disposable camera. I not only wanted to have a better look at who I was dating, but both Danny and Bob wanted to see the 2 friends that she was hooking them up with. So I sent it off, and then anxiously waited for its return. The present that I had sent her was one of my hockey jerseys, and I wanted her to take some photos of her wearing it. I had to wait for almost a month before I got the camera back. I couldn't wait to go get the film developed. Can you see how unique and exciting this was back then? So much better than today. I remember that before I looked at the photos, no matter what Jenny looked like, I had fallen in love with her, through her words and voice over the phone. I knew that no matter what, she was the one. When I developed the film, me, Bob, and Danny, we were all speechless with what we saw. All 3 girls were absolutely beautiful, and Jenny had already set it up so that both Bob and Danny could write to and call the other 2 girls. We all just looked at each other. This was going to be a wild ride, and I couldn't wait. By this time, between all of the phone calls and letters, along with my dedication to saving up for the trip, my parents started to realize that this was real, that we were really going to go to Canada. That's going to do it for part 1. I'm not so sure how long this series will be, but trust me when I say this, it's going to get much deeper. In the next episode, I will cover the Canadian road trip, our relationship, how everything went. I will also be going into how I got into hacking. I am truly trying to lift the veil and let you guys into my life. Please, let me know if you're enjoying this series, and if you would like to see me do more of these, perhaps a series about the haunted house that I lived in. The next episode will go from gold to black, and to find out what I mean by that, well, you're going to have to subscribe, click that notification bell, and tell me in the comments that you're ready for part 2. But that is all for now. I love you all. This is Leonard signing off.